This is the AP Calculus BC 2017 free response questions. Question number 3. I actually took this exam and I did this exact problem, and it wasn't too bad. So I'm going to solve it. Let's get to it. Well, for part A, they ask find the find the values of f of negative 6 and f of 5. And they give us the graph of f prime of f prime. So if we integrate, and we know one known value, f of negative 2 equals 7, so we integrate from negative 6 to negative 2 of f of x dx. Let me fix that, sorry. That equals f of negative 2 minus f of negative 6. So, and we're solving for f of negative 6, so we bring the f of negative 2 onto the other side, equals negative f negative 6, and we divide by negative 1 on both sides to get negative integral from negative 6 to negative 2 of f prime of x dx plus f of negative 2 equals f of negative 6. And the integral from negative 6 to negative 2 is basically this triangle right here, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, base of 4, and a height of, 2. So it'd be 1/2, 2 times 4, forget that negative on the outside, and 2 goes here, 2 goes here, so it's just 1, 1, so it's just 4, plus, we know f of negative 2 is 7 based on here, so 7 equals f of negative 6. So we basically have negative 4 plus 7, which is equal to 3. So f of negative 6 is equal to 3. And they also want f of 5. So we integrate from negative 2 to 5 of f prime of x dx, which equals f of 5 minus f of negative 2. Solving for f of 5, so we bring that negative 2 over the equal sign again. So f prime of x dx plus f of negative 2 equals f of 5. And this time we're going from negative 2. So from here, which is negative 2, to 5, which is right here. So it's consisting of this triangle, which has a base of 1 and a height of 2. This triangle that has a base of 2 and a height of 2. And this semicircle, but the area here, when we calculate it, it's going to be negative because it's under the x-axis and into the, it's below, so it's into the negative territory. So it would be negative 1/2 pi, let me erase that so we can see. So it's 1, 2, so a radius of 2. So negative 1/2, 2 squared, gonna do that, plus 1/2. That one triangle had a base of 1 and a height of 2, and the other triangle had a base of 2 and a height of 2. These 2's cancel, that 2 cancels. Oh yeah, plus, what did we say was 7? So plus 7 equals f of 5. So we are left with negative 4 pi over 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 7 equals f of 5. So then we get negative 2 pi plus 10 equals f of 5. Sorry, f of 5. Or if you want to write it as 10 minus 2 pi equals f of 5, that is also fine. And that's part A. In part B, they ask if on what intervals is f increasing? Justify your answer. Well, if we look at the graph, f is increasing. Let's erase these for a second. F is increasing on this interval here, so that's -6 to 2, and this interval, sorry, that's crappy, this interval here, so that's from 2 to 5. So we would write, let's scroll down here, f is increasing on the intervals -6 x, -6 to -2, and 2 to 5, and you can write it any other way. You can write it with the bracket union to 5. You can write it that way too, but I personally just like writing it the way it's written. And it's increasing on those intervals because it's a weird B. Sorry. F prime of x is positive on those intervals, meaning that f of x is increasing, and you can write that and it would be perfectly fine. I just write positive like that. You should like positive like this. You should probably write it out, but that would be a perfect explanation as to why f is increasing on those intervals, and that's part B. For part C, they asked, let's see, let me scroll up here. Find the absolute minimum value of f on the closed interval -6, 5. Justify your answer. Well, we know that if we look at the graph, f prime of x is equal to 0 at the points -2, 2, and 5. So f prime of x is equal to 0 at x equals -2, 2, and 5. And yeah, I know you got to look at the endpoints too, but the way I did it on the test, because you're kind of strapped for time, I just looked at where those values were equal to 0. And we know that if the derivative goes from negative to positive at a critical point, if it goes from negative to positive, as it is shown to be doing at x equals 2, then we know that that's an absolute minimum. So there's an absolute minimum at x equals 2 because f prime of x is going from negative to positive, meaning that f of x is going from decreasing to increasing, therefore making x equals 2 the minimum value. And I said all of that, but I'm not going to write it down, only because, I'm gonna be honest, I'm lazy. But if you wrote that, I wrote that as my explanation. I believe I wrote that as my explanation on the AP. So I think that would be a perfectly fine and legitimate explanation as to why x equals 2 is the absolute minimum. And last but not least, part D, they asked, for each of f double prime of -5 and f double prime of 3, find the value or explain why it does not exist. Well, we know that f double prime of 3 does not exist because if you look here, it doesn't exist. F double prime of 3 doesn't exist because there's this little kink point here. Like, yeah, like if you draw a line, it's the slope is 0, but it doesn't exist because there's a kink or a discontinuous point at f prime of 3. So f double prime of 3 wouldn't exist. And f double prime of 5, well, if you look at this line here, it's basically the slope of the slope of this line. So f double prime of 3 does not exist because kink slash discontinuous, and that's a weird way to write it, but yeah, discontinuous point at f prime of 3 and f double prime of -5, 2 minus 0 over -2 minus -6. The reason I chose those points is because, well, let's make it easy for ourselves. Negative 2 comma 0 and negative 6 comma 2. So if we find the slope of this line, it would be 2 minus 0 over negative 2 minus negative 6. Well, really, actually, sorry, I just forgot basic math for a second. It would be 2 minus 0 over negative 6 minus negative 2. Either or, you get the same answer, but yeah, so let's just write it in the proper manner, though. Negative 6 minus negative 2. So that would give you 2 over negative 6 plus 2, which is equal to 2 over negative 4, which is equal to negative a half. So f double prime of negative 5 is equal to negative a half. And that is what I believe the answers to be for the 2017 AP Calculus BC free response question number 3. Thank you.